Welcome once again to In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. We're live streaming from our bat cave here at First Star Logistics, our outstanding studios. Dave Burke is in-house with me as well, and we're ready to take on what you guys have to say, have to talk about, your questions, your dialogue, as the Cincinnati Bengals have finished up the bye week with a 5-4 mark, just out of the playoffs at this point in time, but certainly in the hunt. I mean, they've got a lot of football games left against teams that are going to be in the playoff hunt themselves. All you can ask for at this point, as inconsistent as the season has been, the ups and downs, the highs and lows, is that you still control your own destiny. That's all you can ask for. And they're one of a bunch of football teams that still control their own destiny. Big thing is, as we talked about multiple times, 0-3 in the division. So this football game in Pittsburgh becomes huge. Got to get a division win. Right now, I wish the Bengals were in the AFC East, because everybody in the AFC East is over 500, and the Bengals are 2-0 against them. I mean, the Bengals have beat the Jets, played the Jets at the right time. The Jets have gotten much better since, handled the Jets 27-12, and then handled Miami the very next week 27-15. So they're 2-0 against the division that's the best in the AFC right now in terms of performance. The Jets are winning football games. Miami's winning football games. Like I said, everybody's got Buffalo, even though they're on a 2-game losing streak, they're still 6-3. Everybody in the AFC East has a better than 500 record. So Bengals are still alive and more than that. So you just have to take it one game at a time. Big, huge football game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And hopefully the guys took the opportunity during the bye week to rest up and not only rest their bodies, but get your mind right. You know, it's going to be a tough grind down the stretch in the second half of this season. There's no question about it. You look at it. At Pittsburgh, at Tennessee. Tennessee Titans are playing really good football. Vrabel's got them playing great defense. They have a behemoth at the running back position in Henry. I mean, obviously, big challenge there. So they come out of the bye with 2 road games. Then they have 2 home games, Kansas City Chiefs, Cleveland Browns. All you have there is Mahomes and Watson at the quarterback position. Then you go on the road again, and you go up against the GOAT, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tom Brady. And then you go to New England with Bill Belichick and what he's got in store for you there in New England. Always a tough place to play. So they got 2 on the road, 2 at home, 2 on the road, and then finish with 2 more at home. Buffalo Bills, they've got a great quarterback, Allen, even though he's making some red zone turnovers. He historically has been unbelievable in the red zone, taking care of the football, but he's having his issues this year. And then finish up with a guy we know, Lamar Jackson, at the quarterback position for the Baltimore Ravens here in Cincinnati. So 4 home games, 4 road games, 2 on the road, 2 at home, 2 on the road, 2 at home. And you're playing outstanding quarterbacks. So here's my big key for the second half of the season. Protect Joe. The Bengals right now are 26th in the NFL in sacks allowed per pass attempt, 26th out of 32 teams. Their sack numbers, 32, rate higher or even worse, number of sacks allowed, but they've thrown it so much that the sack ratio per pass attempt is 26th in the National Football League. Surprisingly, on the flip side of that, sacks generated by the defense per pass attempt, they're 28th in the National Football League in that category. So the Bengals are in the bottom quarter in both of those areas, protecting their quarterback and pressuring the opposition quarterback. Got to do a good job of that down the stretch. You have to protect Joe. You have to pressure these quarterbacks we just listed that they're going to be playing. Not necessarily, to the tune of 6 sacks a game, but 2 or 3 sacks, hitting the quarterback, shrinking in the space on the quarterback is all big, all huge. And you want to keep space for Joe Burrow. Don't let him get hit. Prevent him from being sacked. I think that's going to be a big factor in how they finish down the stretch this football season. And to do that, you have to run the football. going to be a hell of a lot easier to pass protect if you run the football, and you got to stop the run. And they've had their moments, really good moments of stopping the run, and then they've let some teams get out the gate on them a little bit. And it's going to be very interesting to see if DJ Reader is able to return against Pittsburgh. Tupou, if he's able to come back at some point in the second half of the season and start to fortify what's going on up front there, that would be a big thing. Who's going to be able to run the football, who's going to be able to stop the run is going to be massive in this game against Pittsburgh. Both these teams are coming off big days running the ball and stopping the opponent from running the football. As we know, the Bengals against the Carolina Panthers before the bye, they ran it 39 times for 241 yards. Joe Mixon had 153 of those yards. They held Carolina, more importantly, or equally importantly, to 64 yards on 18 carries. They outrushed Carolina by 177 yards. Pittsburgh last week against New Orleans, they ran it for 217. Najee Harris had 99 yards rushing. And out of the quarterback position, Pickett showed mobility. He had 51 yards rushing. He can hurt you with his feet. And they held New Orleans to 39 yards rushing. So they were plus 178. They outrushed the Saints by 178. The Bengals outrushed Carolina by 177. Both teams coming off great games, running the football, stopping the run, dominating the line of scrimmage, winning up front, fit and finish as offensive linemen, separate from blocks as defensive linemen, don't get blocked. If you can get the running game going, you're going to be in a much better position to protect your quarterback. Play action, pass, everything that comes with it. If you can stop the run, you're going to tee off in the opposition quarterback. So it all goes, the glove fits the hand. I mean, that's what we're looking at here. Who is going to be able to build off of what they did in their last football game? The Bengals before the bye with the Carolina Panthers. Who can build off the momentum of running the ball, stopping the run? Pittsburgh, will they be able to build off the momentum of running the ball, stopping the run against the Saints? It's going to be big in Pittsburgh. It always is. There's no doubt about it.
Randy Byers has a question, Dave.
All right.
Do you have an update on Chris Evans?
Let me give you an update on injuries in general. Chris Evans is in a situation where he tore his PCL, and that's the one that you need the least. So the PCL, if I'm not mistaken, stabilizes front to back. I think he got hit flush right in the front of his knee. I think that PCL is torn. I think he'll play. I think he'll probably play. I wonder if he'll play with a brace. Braces are cumbersome. It's going to be interesting to see. But I think Chris Evans will make the dance right away. Now, how big will his role be? Really hasn't been all that big to begin with. But will it be diminished more because of the injury? I don't think so. I think he's going to be able to go. I think Trey Flowers comes back from the hamstring issue. Mike Hilton is going to play against the Pittsburgh Steelers if he doesn't even have a little finger. He broke it in 3 places. He could have it amputated. He'd still play against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So he had surgery to fix that broken little finger. And right before the bye, so he'll be able to go. He's going to play. Jamar Chase, I don't think we'll see him this week. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think he plays against the Pittsburgh Steelers. When will he be able to play? You hope Tennessee, potentially, but I don't think it's going to be Pittsburgh. DJ Reader looks like he's going to be able to. He was brought off the reserve injured list. 7-year player, big run stuffer inside, friend of our podcast, videocast here in the trenches. He went on injured reserve September 29th, so he was brought off the reserve injured list earlier this week. He's got a 21-day period where he can practice and not count against the roster. I think won't take anywhere near those 21 days. I think he's going to be activated by the end of the week, and they'll have to make a roster move with the activation of DJ Reader. Brandon Wilson also was brought off the reserve PUP list, physically unable to perform list, with a knee issue, 6-year player. And he's got 21 days to practice as well and not count against the 53-man roster. So those transactions were made during the course of the bye week here. in getting ready for this practice week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's kind of Dax Hill shoulder. If Dax Hill, in fact, subluxed the shoulder, which is a dislocation, I've done that. If it's a clean one, it dislocates and pops right back in, like what happened with Jonah Williams when he subluxed his kneecap, dislocated, popped right back in. Gunther dislocated his kneecap, didn't pop back in. The kneecap stayed out there. A little bit more collateral damage. Depending on how clean the subluxation, the dislocation was of the shoulder, Dax Hill could play with a brace. If he has to have surgery, he can wait until after the season to have the surgery. That's normal course of action, depending on if, in fact, he did dislocate it. But I'm just saying, worst case scenario, I've experienced it, know what it's like. You can play. I don't think, I don't think he has any collarbone injury. If he has a collarbone injury, that's another issue to deal with. But I think it's just a shoulder issue is what my understanding is. So, but you've got, all the muscle groupings around there when you sublux, when you dislocate the shoulder. So how much collateral damage was done? What was done to the deltoid? What was done to the capsule in the shoulder and all those kind of things. Depends on the severity of the dislocation, if in fact it's subluxed at all. So shoulder problem, I think he'll play. Will he play with a brace? Potentially. Logan Wilson's playing with a brace. He had his shoulder that he had surgically repaired, had an issue with that, missed one game, played with a harness brace type scenario. Sometimes you tear scar tissue, and that can feel nasty. That can feel like you re-injured it, and you didn't really do anything structurally to the surgically repaired area, but you tore scar tissue, and sometimes that can be as painful and as big a problem, for a short period of time as injuring the darn thing. So these are all things that you deal with. You're at risk for injury 100% of the time, 100% of the snaps when you're playing in the National Football League. No two ways about it. The good news is, I think instead of losing people, now the Bengals had a bye at a very good time, right in the middle of the season. Now you start to get some people back. You get some reinforcements. You call the cavalry. Come on, boys. Give us a little hand here. Come back and contribute and participate. So that'll all be good if they've got bodies that can help them win down the stretch with these final 8 games. There's no doubt about it.
All right, I want to bring something up. Over the weekend on Twitter, Hude Ray asked the question, what play-by-play commentator would you want to narrate your life? And Ken Davies replied, I'd very much like Lap, DL in the trenches, to do the bam, bam, bam. That's coffin nails, Dan, at the funeral. You ever thought about doing a funeral?
No, I don't want to think about your funeral. There's no morbid, to say the least. We want you around for a long time. Who is that sent that message out for us?
That was Ken Davies replied.
Okay,
it was his reply.
All right.
To Hude Ray.
All right.
I'd very much like Lap at DL in the trenches to do the bam, bam, bam.
All right.
That's coffin nails, Dan, at the funeral.
Okay, Ken, we're talking a lot of years down the road. Hopefully, we both live a long time. I'll even be so kind as to say there's a good shot you outlive me, Dan. Ken, I should say. So we'll see how that all transpires. But thanks for the kind words. Anyway, that's always a fun moment, because we don't do it unless we feel pretty confident that the Bengals are going to win the football game. So usually it's a celebratory thing for sure. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. It all depends on how busy we are with other stuff during the course of the football game.
Joseph's question was, O-line will make or break us. Is our line good enough for another playoff run? Yeah,
Joseph, I think the offensive line is kind of a microcosm of inconsistency that we're talking about with respect to the football team. I mean, you look at let's take the last 2 games for the Cincinnati Bengals, and this is another microcosm of inconsistency. The Bengals have been up and down, like we talked about. stunk the joint up against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then go and have good performances. Played solidly against Dallas, just didn't quite finish that football game. Solid performances against the Jets and the Miami Dolphins. They lose a heartbreaker to Baltimore. They rebound and play well offensively against New Orleans and Atlanta. But then you go to Cleveland and stink the joint out. Just play the worst game you've played all year long. Cleveland Browns play the best game they've played all year long. And you get spanked 32-13 on national television up in Cleveland. And then you come back against Carolina and decimate them 35-0 at half, 315 yards to their 35 at the half. I mean, it was ridiculous. They had one first down. It was by penalty. They didn't generate a first down rushing or throwing the football. It was 32 yards on 17 plays is what they held Carolina to in the first half. And they had 315 yards offense themselves. Can't play a half any better than that. They were +3 in the turnover ratio in the first half and finished +3 for the game. So you go from playing that poorly in Cleveland to that well against Carolina. What you don't want to have are the big peaks and valleys. You want to have consistency. Now, you're not going to play better every single week, but you don't want to have like a couple of games where you're rising and then you fall off the cliff. And then you stay down in the gully for another week, and then you jump back up again. You don't want that. You don't want that. You want that graph to look very consistent and continually rising. You don't want it to be up and down, and not know what to expect. The worst thing for a coaching staff is not to know what to expect out of their players that weekend. I mean, there's nothing worse than practicing all week, and you have a great week of practice, and you go to Cleveland and lay an egg. Or you have terrible a week of practice, and then you go and you play tremendous football. And I'm not saying that's the way it went, but you want a coach wants to be able to have a barometer. We had a good, solid week. I feel pretty good about this football team. You don't want to go into a game saying, I have no idea what we're going to do today. I have no idea how we're going to respond. I have no idea I don't know what to expect. And until you start to establish that identity that everybody talks about, from a consistent standpoint, we know when it hits the fan, these are the things we know we can do. And all good football teams, when they experience good seasons, end up getting to a point offensively or defensively, and defensively and special teams. This is who we are. This is what we know we can do. And I think the Bengals are getting there. And I think the offensive line play is getting there as well. Carolina Panthers, man, I can show you some tape that is as good as you're going to see of run blocking for Joe Mixon. I just did a thing down at Paycor Stadium today for Lap's Look for the social media stuff with the Bengals. And man, one of Joe Mixon's runs, they ran a counter, and it's basically double team by the tackle in the tight end, double team by the guard, pull the backside guard, pull the backside tackle. Backside guard kicks out at the end, defender at the line of scrimmage, and the tackle turns up on the linebacker. Every single guy wasn't just blocked, was totally consumed, covered up, destroyed, moved. And it's like Joe Mixon went through there like they wouldn't have been able to touch him with a fingernail. Forget tackle him. I mean, it was blocked as well as you can block it. And I'm encouraged by what I saw in that tape watching the Carolina Panthers game, the running game. Frank Pollock, the run game coordinator, came up with a masterpiece. Now, he put all kinds of things together. He had angle blocking, gap blocking. He'd have linemen double and rub to the next level. He'd have pulling linemen. He'd have traps. He'd have counters. He'd have powers. He had pin and pull, where he'd pin the outside edge guy with the tight end and pull big LC Collins around the horn and get him big body on a smaller defensive back, and Joe Mixon's off to the races. He'd do it with the guard and the tackle, pulling both of them. I mean, he had all kinds of different looks, schematically with his blocking game, with his gap scheme in terms of down blocking and pulling people, and in terms of just lining up and coming off the ball, double team and climb to the next level. Somebody comes off to the next level. Joe Mixon's longest run, 29-yard run, was just right up the football field. Nothing fancy. Joe Mixon's touchdown run on one of them, they went 3 tight ends, and they had Adeniji as one of the tight ends as an extra tackle. And they had 3 tight ends on one side of the line of scrimmage. It was an unbalanced line. I mean, the whole field was tilting that way. And the corner, who's got run support on the outside, he sees 3 double teams inside. So he starts thinking Mixon's going to run the ball between the tackles, and he cheats inside. Joe Mixon plants his foot and just sprints to the outside. I don't know if you remember that run. He ran around the left side and just outran the cornerback. Cornerback didn't keep contained of the outside of it like he should have, and Joe Mixon made him pay. It was all because the offensive line, tight ends, wide receivers were pinning. Wide receivers were pinning defensive ends, pinning outside linebackers. They're motioning, cracking them, blocking down on them, pinning them, and letting linemen pull. It was a great exhibition of run blocking by the offensive line, wide receivers, tight ends. It was really, really something. Hopefully that continues in Pittsburgh. It's going to be tougher to do, I think, against the Pittsburgh Steelers than it was against the Carolina Panthers. They've got a couple of players that are, a cut above, but you're going to have to do that. You're going to have to. I think the team that comes out and establishes physicality in that running game and fits and finishes the best is going to have the best chance to win in Pittsburgh.
Dave, did you have I don't know if you had a chance to this weekend, getting a weekend off. I know you did some stuff with the grandkids.
Yeah.
But I was shocked by the performance of the Browns against the Dolphins. And there were some interesting games. The Bills game against the Vikings was crazy.
Right.
But just totally shocked that the Browns came out and really kind of laid an egg against the Dolphins.
They're inconsistent as well. I mean, they've played well and they've played terribly. I was surprised because they came right down the field and scored. They took a 7-0 lead, and the Dolphins said, no big deal, no problem. Tua's playing unbelievable football. His numbers are crazy stupid. Joe Burrow, 3rd down, his numbers are insane, really. Joe's 3rd down numbers, 132.5 quarterback rating, second to Tua. Tua's over 140. Joe's completing 74.7%, almost 3 out of every 4. Tua's a little higher, 76, 77%. 8 touchdown passes, no interceptions. Tua's got 9 touchdown passes, no interceptions. So as well as Joe's playing, as well as he's playing on 3rd down, Tua's playing even better. And that offense that they've got going down in Miami with Tua and the speed they have at the wide receiver position, they got 2 guys that can take the top off any defense. And it's all about creating space. And these guys can create a lot of space the way they can scare the defense, the big fear of having the ball thrown over your head. They can get it thrown over their head at any time during the football game. And they've got a good running game. He schemes the running game well. They do a lot of motion, a lot of jet sweep, a lot of motion from receivers. It's very sophisticated. They've got a great offense, and they handled the Cleveland Browns. There's no 2 ways about it. And I was surprised that Cleveland didn't run the ball a little bit better than they did, because that offensive line, I think, is amongst the best in the league. But you get down there in Miami and it's hot and you fall behind, and all of a sudden things can get ugly and nasty down there. But yeah, that's the thing. Down the stretch, which football team is going to come out with the most consistent performance on a week-to-week basis, period. That's no high, low. Every week, show up the same way.
All right. Dolores is always with us on our live streams.
All right, Dolores.
Do you think Inspector Gadget, a.k.a. T. Higgins, will pull a few gadget catches out of the bag? Taylor and Irwin looking good, too. We want to remind everybody, last week we had Trenton Irwin with us live in the studio. He was actually here in person.
Yep.
Unbelievable young man that has a lot going for him, even outside of football.
Absolutely. Very intelligent. Went to Stanford. Stanford educated, just a really good human being. Wants to help his fellow human beings. He wants to give back. He's made of the right stuff, no question about it. Hardworking guy. Yeah, I think the Bengals are going to have Trent Irwin, Trent Taylor, guys like that step up. Here's two examples of when you have a great player, what happens when he's not available to you. And I do think T. Higgins is going to make some plays, some big plays. Like you said, 6'4". His arms are at least 8'6". I mean, he's got a huge wingspan, huge catch radius. He can jump. He's flexible. He's got it all, really. So I think he will make some incredible catches down the stretch of the season. But Jamar Chase, not having Jamar Chase on the football field changes things. Jamar Chase is a guy that takes the top off the defense. Jamar Chase is a guy that can catch the ball in a crowd and run away from everybody. He's got physicality. He's strong. He can run. He can get to top speed in a couple of steps. I mean, he's a unique guy. And coverage tilts toward him. When you don't have Jamar Chase on the football field, the numbers that you got when you're T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and everybody else, a lot of those opportunities are there because of what teams are doing to take Jamar Chase out of the picture. When he's not there, you're going to get that coverage. You're going to get some of that stuff. So the trickle-down effect of losing a great player, not only what he can do in forms of numbers that he puts up, but how he helps other guys lift their game to be able to put numbers up as well. Because you can't double team everybody. And without Jamar Chase in the game, you can double team both T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. You can double team both of them. You can double team Jamar and T. Higgins. Tyler Boyd's going to eat. But when you're down your number one receiver, the other guys aren't going to eat anywhere near as much. There's not a whole meal there. There's more crumbs than a whole meal there because now coverage tilts toward you and not toward Jamar. TJ Watt. Pittsburgh Steelers are 2-0 when TJ Watt plays this year. 1-6 when he doesn't. Tells you a lot right there. Their defense is light years better when he's on the football field. One guy in particular that's eating when he's on the football field is Hayward. Their outside linebacker, edge rush guy. Highsmith, I should say. Hayward's the D tackle. Highsmith has 8.5 sacks. Tied for fourth most in the NFL. 8.5 sacks. He's gotten 5 of them in the 2 games that TJ Watt's played. 5 of the 8.5. Why? Got to double TJ. You got to pay a lot of attention to TJ Watt. TJ Watt's not in the game. He's not healthy. He's not playing. Highsmith. He gets more attention. He's only got 3.5 sacks in the other 7 games. The 2 games that TJ Watt played, he's got 5. He got 3 against Jonah in the opener, 3 sacks, and he got 2 last week against New Orleans Saints, the 2 games that TJ Watt played in. So TJ Watt is taking all these, we got to chip him, we got to slide the line, we got to do the TJ Watt teacher. Highsmith, 5 sacks in 2 games. I'm telling you, it's not just you lose what these guys can do from a playmaking standpoint when they're not available to you. The ripple, the trickle down to all the other players has a huge impact. I mean, it's easier to cover in the secondary when TJ Watt's playing with Highsmith. You have 2 edge rush guys. Quarterback doesn't have the time that he has when TJ Watt's not in the game. When TJ Watt's not in the game, they can double Highsmith. And the guy that's playing in TJ Watt's position isn't TJ Watt. So now you have to cover for a longer period of time. You don't have an advantage of space. You don't have, you're not winning that space. The quarterback can stay back there forever, pat the ball forever. You can't cover that long. All of it. I mean, the back end guys play better when TJ Watt's playing. His teammates on the defensive line play better when TJ Watt's playing. That's just, when you have a great player like that, you suffer when he's not on the football field. TJ Watt defensively, Jamar Chase for the Bengals offensively. they have different looks to them without those guys on the football field, and all the teammates can feel it. There's no doubt.
All right. We want to remind everybody, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to In the Trenches with Dave Lapham. That helps us grow the channel. Also, like our videos. In this past week, we had Ted Karras, Trent Irwin. I mean, some great
Peter
guests.
King.
Peter King.
Yep.
I mean, we work. Dave works very hard to get top guests each week, and but if you haven't done so already, subscribe and like. Especially like all the videos. It helps the channel grow. More people find it because we're still growing. We appreciate everybody. We also especially appreciate everything First Star Logistics does for us. Great place to work. We come down here every week, and the atmosphere is always high, intense, people having a good time when they're at work, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, it's an environment that if you're looking for something to do, try this. Try this. Booking freight for companies all over the country. It's a high energy environment. They work hard, play hard, have fun. It's a great environment. There's no question about it. Give it a look. See. It could be a great career for you. There are guys working with First Star Logistics that are doing extremely well for themselves and their families, and you could do the same.
Andrew, Dave, what is your favorite Bengals Steeler game memory and favorite Vontaze Burfict memory?
Yeah, Vontaze Burfict, obviously, and Adam Pac-Man Jones, obviously, that game against the Pittsburgh Steelers will live in infamy forever. Bengals had one and gave it back, gave it away. My favorite Pittsburgh memory is 1981. We actually clinched the division by going to Pittsburgh and beating the Steelers in Pittsburgh 17-10. The year that we went to the Super Bowl, played in Super Bowl 16. And I remember the city went nuts. I mean, we flew back from Pittsburgh, and it wasn't the last game of the season. I mean, there were still games to be played, but we knocked the Steelers off, and we clinched the division. The AFC Central, it was called at that time, and the fans showed up. They showed up at the airport. I mean, when we got off the plane, it was like, man, there were TV cameras, lights everywhere, fans everywhere. It's like, wow, this is like a movie theater. This is like a movie set. They must be filming a movie here. And we work our way to the buses, travel back to the stadium. People are lined up. I mean, it was great. It was a heck of an atmosphere. Heck of an environment, and to beat Pittsburgh was almost like poetic justice, you know, to win the division and then to put ourselves in position to win the American Football Conference, to be the number one seed at the end of the regular season, to try to win the AFC Championship, and it was huge. It gave us that number one seed gave us home field advantage. We beat the Buffalo Bills, and then Chargers, then San Diego Chargers had to come to the Cincinnati Old Riverfront Stadium, play a little freezer ball where it was 9 below raw temperature, 59 below wind chill. And that was honestly, I guess you call it home field advantage, but man, it was Charles Darwinism, man. It was survival of the fittest. That was no advantage to anybody playing in that kind of weather. I can tell you that right now, but Kenny Anderson outplayed Dan Fouts big time that day in that weather. There's no question about it.
AP is turning in from France.
Whoa.
Originally from Cincinnati. Houday,
AP.
And so we got him and Nash. Nash is over in England.
Yeah.
So we're getting international here.
I like it. That's over in Lyon, France, huh? I've been to Paris. There's a lot to see in Paris. The sites are pretty incredible. There's no question about it. Made some European trips to Europe, I should say, when I was doing NFL Europe, and got to see a lot of England, Germany, France. I mean, it was great. It was a great experience. Switzerland. It's cool.
Dave, my question, I titled this, are the Bengals ready for the second half?
Mm-hmm.
So basically just like a game, last week was halftime. Now we get into the third and fourth quarter. This is a gauntlet. of games coming up.
Oh, it sure is.
Do you feel with everything that's gone on, the way the O-line played against the Panthers, we really saw what they can do?
I thought that they'd grown. I thought they played well in other games, but the Panthers game was definitely. They've scored 42 points, a season high. The offensive line dominated, and that's the reason they scored 42. I thought they played well against Atlanta as well. I thought they played well against New Orleans. So 3 out of the last 4 games, they played very well. The egg was laid up in Cleveland, though. Collectively, it was a dinosaur egg. It wasn't just a little chicken egg. It was a big old dinosaur egg. I do think that the offensive line is playing at a much higher level now than they were at the beginning of the season because, like we talked about, nobody plays, in preseason. So particularly when you've got 4 new components, 4 out of the 5 guys had never played next to each other in an NFL game. You got to figure that it's going to take a little while. It'll take a minute for everybody to get in total rhythm and synced up, and they're getting there. I'll tell you, the guy that I think is playing really, really good football, Alex Kappa. Alex Kappa is getting it done at that right guard position. Everybody's playing well, but I think Kappa's playing even at a little bit cut above well. I think that kid is playing some really, really good football. Ted Karras is more than getting it done at the center position. He's providing outstanding leadership, and he's the guy that makes all the calls. He's the quarterback of the offensive line. I think Volston is progressively every week is another experience that that makes him better. I think LC is getting into a little bit of a rhythm. He's dealing with that back issue, not practicing every day of the week still at this point, and making sure that he can play during the course of the season. I think he's playing at a much, much better level. I thought against the Saints, played against a darn good football player in Cam Jordan, did a hell of a job against him. I thought the Saints, Atlanta, and Carolina, LC was playing at a very, very high level at the right tackle position as well. So, yeah, I think that my comment was that, they're going to be better in later September than they were at the beginning of September. And they're going to be better in the second half of the season than they were in the first half of the season. And I still think that. I think that the offensive line is going to play very well, and they're going to have to, because they're going to have to take the pressure and load off of the defense. Like we talked about, all these playing the Kansas City Chiefs, Cleveland Browns with Watson. We talked about their offensive line, their running backs. That's an unbelievable offensive football team. You're going to have to score a lot of points against the Cleveland Browns and the Kansas City Chiefs. Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Tom Brady at quarterback. They have a very salty defense as well at Tampa Bay. You don't know what the weather's going to be like, December 18th down there in Tampa. That could be something to deal with in terms of heat and humidity. Patriots with Belichick. Buffalo, Baltimore. Are you kidding? That is murderer's row, man. Murderer's row. And you have to win those games. This podcast video cast is called In the Trenches. That's where the Bengals are going to have to shine in the second half of the season. They're going to have to win games in the trenches. You win in the trenches, then all your stars can shine. All your best actors can win their awards. You as an offensive lineman, you want to be a best supporting actor, and you want to live vicariously through the best actor going and getting his hardware, getting his awards. Let those skill guys be the best actors. You got to be the best supporting actor you possibly can be.
Cliff says he's a Northern Kentucky boy tuning in from Cali. And I know he's a big UK fan, so he's taking a couple on the chin as far as UK football here lately, maybe again this weekend as they play Georgia. But Cliff always tunes in, so we appreciate Cliff.
Absolutely.
Deja Vu wants to know.
Deja vu all over again.
Why does it seem like we always get beat by one exposing player like a TJ Watt, Myles Garrett? Our entire team is good. It should not happen. Well, that's why TJ Watt and Myles Garrett make the big bucks.
Yeah, you gotta remember, Deja Vu, that the other team is good too. I mean, all the players are good or they wouldn't be in the league. But TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, these guys are the cream of the cream. They are perennial Pro Bowl players. They are the best players at their position. You're talking about the 2 Pro Bowl defensive ends. and they're in the Pro Bowl a bunch of years in a row for a reason. So that when you have a great player like that, like Lawrence Taylor, I mean, the Dallas Cowboys had great football teams, but Lawrence Taylor still affected the outcome of the football game. Dallas Cowboys had a great offensive line, but when you have a guy like that, like a Micah Parsons that the Dallas Cowboys have, the Giants had LT back in the day. When you have a guy like that, that is a huge influence on a snap-by-snap basis, the outcome of the football game, I mean, that's that's just something that you have to deal with. There's a lot of most teams have great players, and you want to avoid being deficient at a position, never mind multiple positions. But if you're competitive everywhere, you're gonna win a lot of football games. But then if you have this guy that can put you over the top because of what he can do offensively or defensively, they call him game wreckers for a reason. And they're just so much better that, from a matchup standpoint, you just can't handle them one-on-one. You have to create ways to scheme to try to, eliminate them. And like I said, TJ Watt, he requires so much attention. Highsmith, he makes plays. Two games that TJ Watt has been in for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Highsmith has 5 sacks. The 7 games that TJ Watt wasn't a part of, he has 3.5. And a lot of it is because of what you have to do to contend with TJ Watt. TJ Watt makes Highsmith's a really, really good player. He's great when he's got TJ Watt on the other side. I mean, he's closer to great. He's not the same player that TJ Watt is, but he's even high. He's the best version of himself when TJ Watt's on the football field. That's just the nature of the beast. That's why the great ones get paid the big bucks. There's no doubt about it. And that's why you have to have if you don't have a quarterback in today's National Football League that operates at a high level, you can have a bunch of really, really good players everywhere else on your football team. You're not going to get to the promised land. You have to have that guy operating at a high level at the quarterback position. There's no doubt.
Andrew came back and says he loves Teddy Karras's personality. So do we. I encourage everyone to go back and watch the one we just did with him last week, because at the very end, the things he's doing off the field, the Cincy hat.
Yep.
Make sure you go get that link. Help support what Ted's supporting over in his hometown.
Ted is a tremendous human being, not just a tremendous football player, but just a great person. And he brings the energy, he brings the enthusiasm every single day. And his thing after the Cleveland game was he was going to monitor the locker room and make sure that there was no pouting, no sulking over the football game. He was going to be the attitude adjustment guy if there needed to be one. And there didn't have to be one. Everybody realized the reasons that the Cleveland game ended up working out the way it did, and they went to work to correct it, and they played well against Carolina. Can they continue it? Can they pick it up? Like a lot of people, oh man, after that game, you don't want to take a bye. You don't want to take a week off. There's something to be said for that, but that's just the way the schedule fell. So now you have to be a pro, and you have to come back and pick up where you left off and put the preparation into it like you did for the Carolina game, and go out and execute like you did in the Carolina game. I mean, whatever the coaches called, the players were up to it and wanted to execute it and did at the highest level, man. It was a sight to behold. That first half was complete and utterly complimentary football at the highest level it can be. 35 points, 315 yards to no points and 32 yards. Are you kidding me? Crazy.
We want to stress, we want to thank First Star Logistics for everything they do for us, providing us the studio, the equipment, the time, and the resources to grow this channel over the last almost 2 years now. Dave, we're coming up in the spring, be 2 years in the
Getting
spring.
after it. Yes, sir.
So everyone's help this channel continues to grow. Again, be sure to check out First Star Logistics if you're looking for a new career change. And Dave, we're going to kind of run this in the last part, get your final thoughts, as this is a big game. This game, I don't know, people realize how big it is. They got to get a win in the AFC North this weekend.
Got to. 0-3. 0-3. Only got 4 losses. It's a 5-4 football team. 3 of the 4 losses are against division opponents. So the first half of the season, the first time you played everybody in the division, it went over. So now it's time to make up for that. And you gotta start it with the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. Got to get a W there. And let's just put it this way. Remember, Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season in 14 years as a head coach with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Never had a losing season. And right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 2-6 or 3-6. 3-6 with that win, I guess. They're 3-6. So they say, all right, well, we've already beaten Cincinnati once. We want to beat them in Cincinnati, and now we're going to beat them in Pittsburgh and go 4-6 and get another division win. I mean, that's the mindset that the Pittsburgh Steelers have. The Bengals have to be acutely aware of that and realize that with Mike Tomlin, he's going to try to run the football, protect his young rookie quarterback. He's going to play great defense. He's going to make you earn everything. And obviously, you look at it, it's almost absurd what the Bengals did in that first game. 5 turnovers, no takeaways, 5 giveaways, no takeaways. On the season, the Bengals only have 10 giveaways. On the year, they had 5 in that first game. In the other 8 games, they've only got 5 more. They're tied for 8th fewest in the NFL after being -5 and dead last buried after week 1. On the flip side of it, Pittsburgh's only got 12 takeaways. They got 5 of them in the first game. So they've only got 7 the rest of the season. Take care of the football. You go -5, you're going to lose 99.99% of the time, particularly if one of them they take back for a touchdown. We've already gone over this ad nauseum. Not only that, the turnovers, you lose your deep snapper, your all-pro kicker. Minkah Fitzpatrick has a pick 6 for a touchdown and blocks an extra point. Minkah Fitzpatrick accounts for 7 points. He's not playing in this football game. Ironically, he's got appendicitis. How about that? Joe Burrow was coming back from it in the opener. Minkah Fitzpatrick is going to miss this opening game of the second half of the season against the Pittsburgh Steelers again with appendicitis. That's kind of ironic. With that said, he blocks the extra point or you win the game in regulation. Your Pro Bowl kicker misses a 29-yard field goal. I mean, those things just don't happen because you have issues, snapper holder and all that sort of thing because of the injury to Clark Harris at that time. Cal Ademitis is on the practice squad. Now it's all rectified. It's all taken care of. But Murphy's Law was in full effect in that first game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it cost the Bengals. There's no question about it. Got to make restitution for this one. You got to make restitution for what happened in week 1. Got to go to Pittsburgh and get that dub, no doubt.
Again, we want to thank everybody. Put my mic on. Again, we want to thank everybody for being with us here on In the Trenches with Dave Lapham. We appreciate you taking part, asking questions, and hopefully we'll do another one here soon. Be sure to stay tuned to In the Trenches during the week, as we'll have our keys to game later in the week. We'll have our special guest probably be released tomorrow.
That'd be Kenny Anderson, my man.
The great Kenny Anderson.
Yes. Kenny played in Cincinnati, coached in Pittsburgh. Great guy to talk to about this football game.
And Dave, any last thoughts before we get out of here? Get ready for Mr. Anderson.
No, I mean, I think we've pretty much covered this one big time. Obviously, it's a massive football game. I think it's very interesting that you start the season with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You start the second half of the season after the bye with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Minkah Fitzpatrick was such a huge factor in the opener. Minkah Fitzpatrick's not going to be playing in this football game. There's a lot of things to contemplate with the football gods in this one. Go out, take care of the football, run the football, win the game. All you have to do is win by a point. Come back to Cincinnati with a W in the division.
Again, thanks to First Star Logistics for everything they do for us. And until next time, this is Dave Burke for Dave Lapham in the Trenches.
At First Star Logistics, we're a very strict company that really puts the pressure on our employees. Brakes? What are those?
That's what I'm talking about, Icky. Get the body right, then the mind's right.
You know, gotta get that body right.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
Become a star with a chance to earn the highest commission percentages in the industry as a freight broker agent. Check out firststarlogistics.com.